Ethan Harrison, a successful businessman in his late 70s, sat alone in his sleek black Mercedes, tapping his thumb against the steering wheel. The air conditioner hummed, barely keeping the sweltering Kentucky heat at bay. Ethan, a man who had built his fortune through years of strategic investments and financial acumen, was unaccustomed to inconvenience. Yet here he was, stranded on a remote country road with a flat tire, far from the comforts of his sprawling estate. After several futile attempts to call for roadside assistance in the signal-deprived area, Ethan let out a frustrated sigh, resigned to waiting for a solution to appear. Just as the weight of frustration began to settle over him, he noticed a figure approaching in the distance. A boy, perhaps 14, wearing a worn t-shirt and battered sneakers, walked toward him with a determined stride. Ethan observed the boy's sharp eyes scan the car before offering him a polite nod. "Flat tire, sir?" the boy asked, his voice calm and assured. "Yes, that's right," Ethan replied, feeling an odd mix of relief and discomfort. "I've been trying to call for help, but there's no signal here." The boy smiled faintly. "I can help with that," he said confidently, kneeling beside the tire. "My grandpa taught me how to change one last summer. Got a spare in the trunk?" Ethan gestured toward the back of the car, watching as the boy pulled out the necessary tools. The young man worked swiftly, his hands steady and efficient. Ethan stood by, feeling uncharacteristically useless. He considered offering the boy a reward but held back, unsure of how the gesture might be received. Within minutes, the task was complete. The boy stood, wiping his hands on his jeans, and gave Ethan a small, satisfied smile. "All done," he said simply. Ethan reached into his wallet, pulling out a few crisp bills. "Here, take this. I appreciate your help." But the boy raised his hand in polite refusal. "Thank you, sir, but I don't need anything. Just glad to help." Ethan stood there, stunned, as the boy turned and walked away down the road, leaving the money unclaimed. As the boy's figure grew smaller in the distance, Ethan felt a strange sense of humility and gratitude. For the rest of the drive home, his thoughts kept returning to the encounter. There had been something about the boy, a quiet dignity, a self-assuredness that spoke of values not often encountered in his world of deals and transactions. That night, Ethan sat in the comfort of his luxurious study, surrounded by books he rarely opened and the soft ticking of a grandfather clock. The memory of the boy lingered in his mind. He had spent his life mastering the art of negotiation, always expecting an exchange for his efforts. But the boy had helped him without expecting anything in return. Ethan couldn't remember the last time he'd encountered such pure, unselfish kindness. The following morning, unable to shake the memory, Ethan decided to find the boy. He drove back to the same stretch of road, stopping at gas stations and diners along the way, describing the young man to anyone who would listen. Most shook their heads or shrugged, until finally, a woman in a small cafe offered a clue. "Sounds like you're talking about Jesse," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. "That boy's always helping folks' lives with his mom over in Clifton." Ethan repeated the name, Clifton, making a mental note. Thanking the woman, he headed toward the small town nestled in the foothills of the Appalachians. The streets were lined with modest homes and small businesses. After a few inquiries, he was directed to a small, weathered house on the edge of town. The house was humble but well-kept, with a sagging front porch and flower pots filled with marigolds. Ethan hesitated before knocking. When the door opened, a woman in her early 40s greeted him. Her kind eyes narrowed slightly in curiosity as she sized him up. "Good morning," Ethan began, clearing his throat. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I believe I met your son yesterday. Jesse, right? He helped me with a flat tire." The woman's expression softened. "That sounds like my Jesse," she said, smiling. "He's always lending a hand." "I wanted to thank him properly," Ethan said. "He wouldn't accept anything from me." She nodded and stepped aside, inviting him in. "He's out back working on the fence. You're welcome to wait." Inside, the house was cozy and full of life. The furniture was old but clean, the walls adorned with family photos and hand-drawn pictures that hinted at Jesse's younger years. Ethan followed her to the backyard, where Jesse was hammering a loose board into place. The boy looked up, surprised to see Ethan. "Hey, mister," Jesse said, wiping his hands on his jeans. "What are you doing here?" Ethan smiled. "I wanted to thank you again. You helped me when I really needed it, and I haven't stopped thinking about it." Jesse shrugged, his expression genuine. "It wasn't a big deal, but it was to me." Ethan insisted. "You taught me something important." For a moment, Jesse regarded Ethan thoughtfully, his calm demeanor putting the older man slightly on edge. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "I'd like to do something for you and your family." Jesse straightened, his face cautious. "We're doing fine, mister. We don't need anything." Ethan knelt slightly, meeting Jesse's eyes. "It's not about need. It's about showing gratitude. You've given me more than you realize." Jesse's mother called him inside for lunch, inviting Ethan to join them. He hesitated but accepted, drawn by the warmth of their hospitality. The kitchen smelled of roasted vegetables and fresh bread. As they ate, Ethan listened to Jesse talk about his dreams of becoming an engineer and his love for tinkering with tools. His mother shared stories of their community, speaking with quiet pride about the strength they found in each other. Ethan felt a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced in years. When the meal was over, Ethan stood to leave, promising himself he would find a way to repay their kindness. Over the following weeks, Ethan set his plan into motion. He called in favors, hired contractors, and arranged for Jesse's home to be repaired and improved. A new porch replaced the sagging one. The roof was mended, and the rusty swing set in the backyard was swapped for a sturdy new one. Inside, the house was repainted, the floors polished, and the kitchen upgraded. Jesse and his mother were overwhelmed by the generosity, insisting it wasn't necessary, but Ethan wouldn't hear of it. "You reminded me what really matters," he told them. "Let me give back." Jesse watched the workers with fascination, his curiosity about construction growing. One of the contractors took him under his wing, teaching him the basics and answering his eager questions. Ethan watched from the sidelines, feeling a deep sense of pride in the boy. When the renovations were complete, the family's home radiated warmth and stability. As neighbors gathered to admire the changes, Ethan felt a joy he hadn't known in years. Jesse's mother expressed her gratitude, her voice trembling with emotion. "You've done more than fix our house," she said. "You've given us hope." Ethan smiled, his voice soft. "And you've given me purpose." As the sun set that evening, Jesse sat beside Ethan on the porch. "Mr. Ethan," he began, "I want to help people the way you helped us." Ethan placed a hand on Jesse's shoulder. "You already have, Jesse. Never lose that kindness. It's your greatest gift." From that day forward, Ethan became a part of their lives, mentoring Jesse and finding fulfillment in the simplicity of connection. In helping Jesse and his mother, Ethan rediscovered the true wealth of life, compassion, community, and the joy of giving without expectation.